It's match day, everybody. It's finally here. Inter Miami kicking off their season against the Chicago Fire today at Drive Pink Stadium. Probably just a couple of minutes or a couple of hours when you guys are watching this. 6 p.m. kickoff at Drive Pink. Alex, I know both of you and I are extremely excited for this. Uh, Good to see you. How is everything?
Good. How are you?
I can't complain, and I'm obviously very excited for a match day. It's been so long since we've had one, and it's finally here. Um, we did our season preview yesterday. We talked about a lot of things, but now it's time to get into the nitty gritty of what a match week is like. And now we're taking on an Eastern Conference opponent at home. All of those games are extremely important. If you remember, Inter Miami just barely missed out on the playoffs last year, despite being a pretty disappointing team overall. But they were still in the running for quite some time. And for the last 2 years, Inter Miami have not really started off on the front foot. If you remember in 2020, I think you mentioned yesterday, 5 straight losses. They went on the road to LA and DC, lost both those games. MLS's back tournament lost those 3 group stage matches, which counted for the standings. And if you look back at 2021, you had another home opener, right? You had a home opener against the LA Galaxy and you lost
Yeah.
3-2. And unfortunately, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. I think this is the year that Miami really need to cement themselves and try and get out on the front foot. Um, so let's discuss that. How do they do that? Where do we go from here? Let's talk about the team though. Let's talk about the roster and how this starts. And I'm going to start at the back, and I'm going to start with you on this. Nick Marsman still out with an injury. Phil Neville confirmed that, I believe, on Wednesday or Thursday. What does that mean for who's going to be in goal? I think we know the answer, but let's discuss that for a little bit. Your thoughts on the goalkeeping situation?
Yeah, Marsman suffered an injury late last year, so he had to go get knee surgery, and obviously, knees can be a bit tricky, especially when you're a goalkeeper and those side-to-side lateral movements. You don't want to twist anything too quick to re-aggravate that. So, mainly out of precaution and the fact that Nick hasn't fully recovered yet, Clement Diop will end up starting today. Diop showed, he played well during preseason. He's an experienced MLS player. He played for I was about to call them the Impact again, CF Montreal, um, all those years, and he was a starter for them. So, really quality, good starting quality backup keeper. He will probably end up starting today unless, God forbid, something crazy happens. But the Diop will be the goalkeeper number one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that everyone kind of has come to that conclusion. And the thing with Diop, we saw a ton of him in preseason, and I think that there was enough to like about him being the starting goalkeeper, at least for the first couple of weeks. And I think that even if it had to be a whole season, I think that that would be completely okay. I'm not sure exactly what happened, in terms of his departure from Montreal. However,
Hmm.
there was a lot of experience with Inter Miami. If you remember last year, Montreal was training at the Inter Miami training grounds. He
Yeah.
eventually left the club and then stayed in South Florida to train with Miami all throughout the rest of the year in 2021. Eventually, they announced the signing this year, and I think that it was a good one. It was probably a really smart one,
Hmm.
knowing the severity of Nick Marsman's injury. The other backup keepers, you have Drake Callender, whose preseason was not necessarily the best, if we're being honest here. And then they brought in an American keeper from Benfica, CJ Dos Santos, who we've not seen in game action just yet, if I believe. So there's a clear number one here without Nick Marsman. It is Clement Diop. There's a lot to like from him. He's got good shot stopping ability. He's definitely a very vocal goalkeeper, which is important. And I think that he's had enough time with the back line and with the team to be able to instruct them. And I think that one thing to look out for, one thing that I'm not fully sure on, is his distribution. We know Nick Nurse's distributions was really good. I want to see how they build out from the back with Diop if they try to do that at all. All right, so going forward, let's get into the back line here. I think that we're in an agreement that there will be 3 center backs covering Diop today.
Yeah.
So let's discuss those. I think in my head, of course, we had the injury, the unfortunate injury to Ian Frey to begin the season. or in preseason. Ryan Saylor was signed, the draft pick, who was selected ninth or 10th overall, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Um, the center backs that are on this roster right now, there is a clear three, in my opinion.
Mhm.
I believe it would be Damian Lowe, Christopher McVeigh, and Heido Quinteros. I think Babika obviously has a great opportunity to start throughout the season. However, with Damian Lowe coming in, being that central center back in the back three, I don't think you take him out of the lineup if he's fully healthy and ready to go. Just because he is another vocal leader at the back, he's extremely menacing. He, improves himself onto the game. And so those are my back three. How do you think this collective unit? What have you seen from them in preseason? How do you think this collective unit will match up against the Chicago Fire attack, especially with Jordan Shakiri?
Quick, good. They're very quick. Last season, Inter Miami center backs weren't the fastest, so uh, seeing them scramble to get back. Oftentimes, when a through ball goes through, Miami won't have those issues anymore with McVeigh, Quinteros, and Lowe. They're extraordinarily quick. Physicality wise, they're all pretty tall, but they're all very skinny as well. So they're not gonna maybe not, like a guy like Shavilko, they're maybe not gonna bully him physically, but as speed goes, absolutely they will be able to outrun him. Um, yeah, I think it's probably the most solid center backs that Miami has had in a long time. Of course, in the past, yeah, guys like Vigal, LGP, McCoon, but these certain group of guys, they bring everything that the club wants. They're fast, young, they're really good on the ball, and they have that fight. So I think it'll be honestly, I think it'll be in the first 10 minutes when the teams are trying to settle down. I think it'll be difficult because I think Chicago will just spam long balls over the top. And I will say during the Challenge Cup, Miami didn't do so well with that versus excuse me, versus Charlotte. Of course they ended up getting the win, but basically Charlotte spamming long balls over the top. It did give the back line a couple of nervy moments, but they held on well. But yeah, I think with their pace and speed and their ball playing abilities, I think they'll be able to hold on today.
Barring any injuries that I can't seem to find at the moment, I'm thinking that it's going to be. Well, I'm not sure if Jordan Shakiri is going to start, but I don't see why he wouldn't. If I'm Chicago, I think I'm putting him there,
Yeah,
especially with another injury they have in the midfield, especially defensive midfield. If he's going up as the number 10 with Shabalko in front of him, I think that's a 9-10 pairing that could be lethal.
yeah.
Kasper Shabalko has had good luck against Miami in the past. I think he had a brace last year, if I'm not mistaken, and then the year before, him and Brendan Aronson had a really good game in the MLS's back tournament. So that's a player to look out for, other than Jordan Shakiri. I think that one of their main players in the midfield, now that I'm moving into the midfield, is injured. Federico Navarro, who they brought in. Um, I think that's a big loss for them, and I think that this is an opportunity for Miami to implement themselves on the match in the midfield. Gregory, Jean Mota, and then we have to talk about the wing backs as well. I think that we are completely certain that those two guys, Gregory, Jean Mota, are going to start. As for the
Mhm.
right back, I think we're pretty positive that DeAndre Yedlin is going to start. So let's talk about those three first, and then we'll talk about where maybe our discrepancies lie with how Phil Neville's going to line this team up, because I think we might have opposite opinions here. But let's talk about John Mota, Gregory in the midfield, and then we'll talk about DeAndre Yedlin. So what I mean, we know what Gregory can offer, right? We know that Gregory is going to impose himself on the match. He's going to have all these recoveries. He's going to put pressure on opposing attackers. He even could play a pass going forward if he really needed to, but he is that defensive midfielder that's going to get stuck in for a tackle and really just be the workhorse in midfield. Expecting the same from him in 2022, I hope, and also next to possibly a better midfield partner in Jean Mota, other than Blaise Matuidi or Victor Ujo at the moment, which Victor Ujo is out injured, unfortunately. He should be back soon, I'm hoping.
Mhm.
But what do you expect from that Brazilian duo today in the midfield?
Lots of physicality. I know Jean Mata is more of a box to box guy, but he can put in a tackle. I think with if Shakiri starts with him running around, I think those two will end up having a more defensive job today. Of course, it depends on the formation, which we will touch on later. But I think I think it'll be a kind of difficult game. The first 10 minutes, I think it'll be trying to get everyone to settle down. As far as Gregory goes, I think this season he will be more of an offensive player. I know last season, I think we've talked about this, how he was sort of forced to play that DM role. Of course, he can. He's more a defensive midfielder, but if he has his chance, he can put in a good a good pass, a good cross. I think it was versus Cincinnati last season where Gregory provided that assist for Breck Shea, and he ended up scoring the first goal
Yeah.
in FC Cincinnati Stadium history, which was an Inter Miami player, which is funny. Um, but yeah, Gregory has that in his locker, and this season I think he'll be more of an offensive player, but for the Fire, I think the first 10 minutes it's getting everyone to settle down, playing a more defensive style of football. Gregory, not necessarily the whole team, and just trying to, Miami wants to retain possession, so they're probably going to high press, probably going to get the ball back as quickly as possible, trying to hit the guys on the wings, which we will talk to who's going to start at left wing back. Yedlin will probably end up starting at the right, so trying to hit those guys over the top and getting those crosses in.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that's going to work. I'm excited to see how. I'm not
Yeah.
interested. I'm not only interested. I'm excited because I think that this is a midfield pairing that could last a really long time in MLS, barring any transfers that they get their profit back from.
Hmm.
If I'm looking at the right side now in that midfield, I guess we'll call it four, possibly five. DeAndre Edlin obviously is there. You could put him in the back line. You could put him in the midfield. He's going to play right wing back. Put him in the middle, whatever it is. DeAndre Edlin, right wing back, over preseason, I mean, he kind of grew into his role. I would say it took him a little while. However, he's brand new to the team, didn't have full preseason training like everybody else. Came a little
Hmm.
later on,
Yeah.
but he still showed the qualities that DeAndre Edlin should show, and I think that that is a key part to this team. We talked about it, I believe, in our season preview.
Hmm.
Miami have not had a right back to be happy about. Realistically, we've had Victor Ujoa play there. We've had Nico Figal play there. Dylan Nealis play there. Alvis Powell play there. It's been all over the place at right back, and now you've signed this guy DeAndre Edlin for what 3-4 years. Seems like you have a surefire starter for those 3 to 4 years. What do you expect from Yedlin today? How does he not only help the back line, but going forward? I mean, we saw tired legs from him, but he's doing full on sprints in preseason at the end of matches. Um, what are you expecting from Yedlin today? And what do you think his role in the offense is, or what is he going to be instructed by Phil Neville? Remember, Lewis Morgan was there in that position last year.
Hmm.
Do you see anything similar, or do you see something a little different given DeAndre Yedlin's qualities?
Maybe something a bit similar. I know when Morgan played as right wing back, he was basically there because he was a good winger, and Neville wanted him to get in crosses. But with Yedlin, he's more, he's a fullback. He wants to defend first, and then of course go up and attack. So Yedlin will have better defensive positioning. As far as what Neville wants Yedlin to do, I think it's to hold that touchline on the far side, provide that with get him behind when he can, but also provide that come short option should whoever starts as that right center back, probably Quinteros, to provide Quinteros with that extra passing option, basically. So um, there will be times where he, flies and gets in behind when Chicago is lacking, and of course, Miami has the players now to be able to hit him on that diagonal pass. Going through the flanks, basically, Elaine, Mata, Gregory, whoever starts as a third midfielder, or if they switch to a 4-3-4-3. But yeah, I think Yedlin will have a pretty important role today, especially if the Fire play 4-2-3-1. Him being that extra guy on that right hand side can overload the Fire, because the 4-2-3-1, it provide it you need two very disciplined double pivots in order to keep the numbers, even in midfield and on the wing. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting game tactically. I'm looking forward to watching and breaking it down. But yeah, Yedlin's going to be pretty important today.
Very sorry about that. I think I was muted. Over on the opposite side, at left wing back, there are questions. Jovan Jones, yes, is still on this roster, but have not seen any of him in preseason. Saw Breck Shea in preseason, and we also saw a lot of Noah Allen in preseason as well, especially the Carolina Challenge Cup, who's not necessarily on the first team roster, but I think that we've heard that it's a possibility he can start today, given new MLS rules in terms of first and second teams and all that kind of stuff. And then as for Kieran Gibbs, who, yes, is of course still on this roster, questions about his fitness. And I'm not sure the injury that he sustained. It's not been asked about, which is something that kind of is unfortunate, but it does need to be asked about.
Yeah.
And I think that is it's a question for him to start or even be in the team today. I don't think he will be. So that leaves the question: is it Breck Shea? Who's the replacement? And is it Noah Allen? Is there a possibility Noah Allen gets a start today, or do you think that Breck Shea is just going to be slotted in there because that's what Breck Shea does?
Um, uh, I think this is difficult. I do remember reading in an article last night from Michelle Kaufman of the Miami Herald that Miami's trying to get paperwork done in time so Noah Allen can end up getting some playing time later today. If that goes through, I think Noah Allen is starting 100%. I think the fact that he started all throughout preseason, we haven't heard a word about Kieran Gibbs. Breck Shea is still coming off an injury. Having a player like Noah Allen, who is locally, a local talent, he's very good. We all covered him for Fort Lauderdale CF, now known as Inter Miami too. He's ready for MLS. I think we can all agree on that. So, yeah, if the paperwork went through, I think it's Noah Allen. But Neville did mention that Breck Shea could be back for this game. So, yeah, it's a toss up. It's a toss up. I do think Brett coming off an injury, he's a little bit older. You don't want to rush him. So, if they got the paperwork done in time, I think Noah Allen starts.
Yeah, that would be really good. There was no announcement on that from Miami yesterday when I believe roster compliance was set to be made. But there was also an interview with Jorge Mas and David Beckham on that same day, so that could have overlapped, and that could be the reason why. But I would hope to see Noah Allen today if that was a possibility. For him to be in the match tonight, I think it would be really good, and I think that he would be my number one besides Kieran Gibbs for sure,
Hmm.
especially on this roster right now. Now we've got three players left, and I think that we will have to discuss how we think Miami's going to line up with these next three players because there's been a lot of questions and a lot of wondering as to how Phil Neville's going to do this. We saw different formations from him, or not only different formations but different personnel and types of players. With three men above Mota, Gregory, and the wing backs. I'll start here. Higuain's obviously going to start.
Yeah,
I think that there's no doubt in my mind Higuain starts, but it just depends on what his role is going to be. I see him as like a deep lying forward who's going to be a playmaker,
a
uh,
false 10,
a
if you
false
will.
10, whatever you want to call it. So many different words that you could probably use for that kind of
Yeah.
player, but I think that that's going to be his role, and it'll set up for two players in front of him, a true number 9 in Leonardo Campana, and then another in behind threat who I think is going to be Emerson Rodriguez. Um, I think that he has too much technical ability and pace to not. And if this is, of course, if he's fully healthy, we did see a little bit of him against Charlotte.
Hmm.
But it just felt like to me that they were hiding his quality a little bit in preseason, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah,
You
it
know,
did.
they did right, and with Campana and Emerson when they came into the team, it was right off the bat. Okay, they have injuries. We need to nurse, and we need to take our. I think it was let's just take our time.
Hmm.
We've put a lot into these guys. Let's take our time. Campana got off a little bit earlier, and then Emerson comes in for that last match to get full speed minutes. I think that Emerson is the guy that's gonna start. It's not gonna necessarily look like I mean maybe it looks like a 3-4-1-2 if I'm not mistaken. You put Higuain in front of the two center mids, but I don't think it's going to be a direct striker partnership between Campana and Emerson. I think Emerson could have the freedom to have a not necessarily Carlos Vela role, but you know how Carlos Vela can move up and down the front
Yeah.
three the entire time. He'll play different than Carlos Vela because he's just going to be darting to get through center backs. Um, but I think that is a possibility. What do you think you are going to see Phil Neville put out on the field? Is it another midfielder? This is where you have to make your decision, Alex.
Yeah.
Is it going to be another midfielder, or is it going to be a striker, or is it going to be somebody who we've talked about a lot and liked a lot, Ariel Lassiter instead of Rivaldo?
I think uh, this hurts to say, but I love Georgia Costa, but I don't know. I don't. It just that third central midfielder is it's a tricky role, and yeah, I think this is difficult, but I'll go with my gut. I think Neville's gonna come out in a 3-5-2, and I think maybe Georgia Costa will start, or maybe we'll get a Mo Adams. I don't know, but I think they're gonna start on a 3-5-2, and then let's say it's still tied at halftime. By like the 60th minute, I can see them switching to a 3-4-3. Because the opponent will be tired. You can stretch the back line a bit more, and then you bring on guys like Lassiter and Emerson who have pace to burn and are technically good, and you switch that 3-4-3. And I've seen Miami do it several times during preseason, where Campana would come off, and then Neville brings on Lassiter, and he'll bring off a third central midfielder for Emerson, and they'll. I wish I had my tactical board, but they'll play this like 3-4-2-1, where Higuain is still at the top, but Lassiter and Emerson are kind of tucking in, so it makes up more bodies and players in the midfield. But yeah, I think they'll start off in one formation and switch to another. I think it all entirely depends on how Chicago plays the game. Really, they could want the possession of the ball, and if that's the case, I think Miami's just gonna defend compactly, hit them on the counter, and if Miami's able to have the ball, I think maybe they'll switch into that 3-4-3. So I think the fact that we're able to discuss this compared to last season is absolutely like so brilliant. So I think yeah, Inter Miami have a lot more choices this season. So whatever they come out, and I think they'll do whatever is best for the tactical situation at the time. But I do think they'll start on the 3-5-2. I think
Okay,
with Campana and Higuain up top, and
and
George Costa, maybe Mo Adams, and Mata Gregory.
gotcha.
No Allen Yedlin.
I
Same back
think
line.
I think with Adams, coming like Breck Shea, I think they came back from injury at the same time.
Yeah.
So that might be a little bit of a question. If George Acosta plays, I think that's a playmaker that could cause problems that
Hmm.
people are maybe going under the radar about a little bit. But it's interesting to see interesting to think of what Phil Neville's going to do, and I don't think it's going to be consistent. I think that you can use those front three players in different ways without
Yeah.
hindering the team. Like you can have all these different options, and they're all set to do their own specific roles,
Yeah.
and because of that, it's not going to hinder the back. How many players is that? Back seven. That that
Yeah.
that are not going to be attacking as much. The front three, or however you want to call it, is going to be asked to do different things at different times, and that is okay. Remember, you still have Robert Taylor there as well. That's another
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
That's another one who obviously is he won't. I don't think he'll be ready yet. Right?
No,
We
no, no.
we,
Yeah.
we talked about it yesterday on the season preview. One day's training. Got into the country I think 3 days ago. Phil Neville said so. There's a lot to be said for that, but there's options and there's different players with different technical abilities and skills, and that's a good thing. It's going to keep teams on their heels and wondering how Miami's going to line up and come out. And as for those 60th minute changes, that's another possibility. You don't have to play the same way for 90 minutes. Obviously, no team ever does. But even if they're controlling a match, if they go out and completely switch up the attack and can throw an opposing team off with different tactics, that's something that they have in their bag. I think that the roster build so far that Chris Sanders, Phil Neville does has been really good, and I just hope that they can prove it now on the pitch today, especially at Drive-Thing Stadium against Chicago Fire. All right, let's wrap it up here. Predictions, Alex. Miami, Chicago. Give me your score line, and I guess your goal scorers as well.
Mm, I I'll be more a bit more realistic this season. Last year, I was always saying, "Oh, Miami's gonna beat everyone like 5-0," which is that clearly didn't happen. But I'll say it'll be a tough game. Hmm, I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. I think,
Okay.
but it's the start of the season. Both teams are still, getting players in, getting fit. So the first game of the season for every club, it's never the prettiest unless you're, Manchester City or a top level team like that. But yeah, I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. I think Higuain will score, which will be fitting. And for Chicago, wouldn't it be funny if Shaqiri scores? So I'll go 1-1 Miami, Chicago, Shaqiri, and Higuain the goal scorers.
Okay, I was also gonna go with a draw, but I for some reason and just like I'm expecting a little more goals.
Mm,
I'm saying 2-2. I want to give Inter Miami the 2-1 win, but I am still
yeah,
not able. I'm not able to trust them holding a lead. Like that is something that has been consistent throughout their history.
yeah.
Every time they score, it seems like within the next 5-10 minutes they're giving up a goal on the back end. Hopefully that changes. Obviously, it's a brand new back line.
Hmm.
But it could be a curse that haunts this team. Unfortunately, you
Yeah.
never know. I'm going to say 2-2. I do think Higuain will score. I also think that Campana will score. And then as for the other end, I think Sherbalko um, bags a brace. I think Sherbalko
Oof.
bags a brace.
The
And
ghost of Shivalko
the ghost
haunting
of
us.
Sherbalko, I think that he'll bag a brace. There's a lot to like about his game. Chicago picked up a really good player in that, especially to play in front of Xherdan Shaqiri if they're truly going to use him as a number 10 instead of a winger. So that's 2-2. I'm not going to give Inter Miami the win this early on, and that'll be that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will be at Stadium today. You will be able to get our coverage on our Twitters. Mine's listed. Oh wait, this side below. The inverse is terrible.
Yeah.
Alex's is at AAW underscore 1998. All your 5 reasons content coming from us. Our producer Alejandro will be there as well. We'll have articles up and everything like that coming throughout the season. But make sure if you can make it out to Drive Pink Stadium and hoping for an Inter Miami win. Alex, thanks so much for coming by.
No problem. Had a lot of fun.
You guys have a good one. Thank you so much.